Buck James and the Conway Wampus Cats get a tremendous victory in Tiger Stadium at Bentonville in Week 1. Bo Williams of Shiloh Christian runs wild in Little Rock, and Boonville wins a shootout in Ozark. We'll break it down on this week's Prep Rally. Welcome to the Prep Rally Podcast, sponsored by West Termite Pest and Lawn. I'm Graham Thomas with the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and I'm joined in the studio with NWA Democrat-Gazette sports reporter Rick Fires. Leland Barclay joins us in the River Valley. Guys, I'll tell you what, man, it don't get any better than what Rick and I got to see last week at Bentonville with Bentonville and Conway. We're going to just jump right into that one for the Week 1 recaps. Man, I tell you what, I've seen some good high school football games, and that one was as good as it gets, right, Rick?
I'm the same way. I'm going on almost on 40 years. I can't remember a more exciting game. It was a college-like atmosphere. And, Conway jumped out there, and I said, well, you know what, they're going to beat them pretty bad. And boom, the second half kickoff, 99 yards, C.J. Brown, and then he gets an 81-yard touchdown pass. Man, I wish I could remember the kid who was downfield blocking, number 18, I think, for Bentonville, threw a tremendous block down there that helped spring them. But, man, absolutely tremendous game, and we know this is only round one. They're probably going to see each other maybe in the playoffs for round two.
Leland, I would almost guess you were kind of keeping an eye on that one, just out of the corner of your eye anyway. I know you were at Northside and Greenwood, but everybody was wanting to know what was happening in Bentonville.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talk about big boy football. That's big boy football.
Yep. So Bentonville was down. They got down 14-0 almost right off the bat, and it was 28-10 at halftime. And like Rick said, C.J. Brown returns the opening kickoff for a score. Bentonville gets a stop on defense, and then they score again on another long pass to C.J. Brown. All of a sudden, it's 28-24. Bentonville eventually comes back and takes the lead at 39-35. Conway has one more drive in him, goes down and scores for what would be the game-winning touchdown, and 42-39 final. And I was just amazed at what I saw, really on both sides. You got to give Conway a lot of credit. They and Coach Buck James's debut, they came up and got a big win, and they've got a really good football team.
They got athletes all over the place, and this game lived up to its billing. They absolutely did.
You got to give credit to Bentonville too.
Yeah.
They could have laid down and gotten blown out at home in their home opener. They had a chance to win the ball game, and at the end of the day, sometimes that's all you can ask for. So. Takeaways from it, it doesn't really hurt either team either way. It just kind of gives you a barometer of where they're at. I think both teams kind of feel like, well, we need to get a lot better in a lot of areas to get ready for the stretch of conference play coming up.
Especially Bentonville, man. They time and time again, Conway got defenders behind those in the secondary, and I know they're going to concentrate on that. But that number one for Chris for Conway got behind.
Chris O'Neill.
Yeah, he was really, really good, and they're going to clean that up because Bentonville is traditionally, like Leland said, you win with defense, and they kind of got whacked around a little bit on defense, and they'll get better at it.
Yeah, it was just a really cool atmosphere. I got to kind of take in the pregame out there on one of the landings for the stairs going down out of the press box, and man, it was a great crowd. Conway brought a great crowd. Wasn't terribly hot. Just a really fun high school football night. It's really what it's all about. Man, down in Little Rock, there was a heck of a performance by one of our guys up here, Bo Williams of Shiloh Christian. Statistically, the Shiloh folks had him for 400 yards on the nose and 6 touchdowns. I know stats can go here or there or whatever. That was a heck of a performance for Bo Williams and the Shiloh Christian team getting a win at Little Rock Christian. That one surprised me because Little Rock Christian handled Shiloh pretty good at the Champion Stadium last year. And, I thought with Walker White playing at home, Little Rock Christian, there was some adversity that Shiloh had to overcome. Their quarterback went down, And Bo Williams just put that team on his back, and then that defense, and Bo plays on defense too. They get a big 43-22 victory at Little Rock Christian, and man, that to me speaks volumes about maybe what Shiloh Christian's going to be about this year, Rick.
Yeah, to overcome something like that, losing your starting quarterback. I don't care if he is a freshman; he's your starting quarterback. And Bo, I was talking to the Shiloh Christian coach Barnard, and I said, did you go to Bo and say, hey man, we got to have you? We got to. And he said, no, it was implied. Bo knew, and he basically said, give me the ball. I will help win this game. Of course, Bo gives a lot of credit to offensive line. And I want to say, as an ASU graduate, I watched ASU get totally nationally embarrassed 73-0 at Oklahoma. And they're recruiting off the portal. Come over here and get some of these kids. Bo Williams is a player. Come over here and watch him, scout him. I saw on his Twitter page, Missouri Western, which is fine, D2 school. Don't let this kid get out of state. This kid can play. Yeah. Go get him. Keep him in Arkansas.
Yeah, I can't watch. I can't wait to watch him play live too. And hopefully we'll get to do that sometime down the road this season in Leland. I know you were so intrigued by that performance, you just had to go back and watch it all.
I went back and watched the whole game and, kept my own stats, which, it doesn't matter. 400, 393. I think Rick had him with 388 in the Player of the Week story today, which probably came from Shiloh Christian after they went back and went through huddle.
I had 400. I was just going by what was in the game story.
Yeah, I think we kind of agree that it is just a heck of a performance all the way around, and that's special.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it was 400 or 393 and 6 touchdowns. I mean, it was a tremendous performance because when the starting quarterback, Cole Creighton, went down, and that was in the first quarter, that was early.
Yes.
I think he was 5 for 5 for 34 yards at that point. But when he went down and he was holding his collarbone, which is never a good sign. But when he went down, of course, I knew the outcome already when I went back and watched it, but I thought, wow, how did they win this game? Of course, I knew Bo Williams had a big night, and obviously that was it. But like you said, the thing that's so surprising, two things, Shiloh Christian's defense, because Walker White and the Little Rock Christian offense was never a factor in the game.
Wow.
That's just amazing.
Shiloh Christian jumped out on them early and maintained the lead, and they just kept handing the ball to Bo Williams. And Little Rock Christian knew what was coming, and he still was getting 4 or 5 yards a pop. And, Bo Williams is he's not one of these 4-4 guys, so he wasn't bouncing a lot of those runs outside and getting around the corner. They were, we talked about big boy footballs, Bentonville and Conway. Well, he was getting big boy yards just right up the middle, 4 or 5 yards after contact. I mean, I think he had one carry where they stopped him for no gain. And everything else, it was just power football.
And it's not like that Shiloh beat them by 1 point or 2. They beat them by 21. I mean, that's a very thorough victory for the Saints.
I covered that game last year when everybody was infatuated. Sam Pittman was on the sidelines watching Walker White, and they handled Shiloh Christian pretty well. But I love this description Coach Barnard gave me about Williams. He said he runs angry.
Yeah.
He runs angry. And I love that. Only one stop maybe at the line of scrimmage, but he's going to fight you and get you 2-3 yards, fall forward.
Let's talk about another game that really kind of caught my eye over on Friday night. I got the write-up came in that Springdale High had rallied to beat Farmington, scored a couple of late touchdowns, and man, what a win for Coach Hobbs over at Springdale High. They've changed that offense to the flex bone, and they really got it. They really got the bone rolling there late in the second half. What a great win for the Bulldogs coming back to beat Farmington last week.
Yeah, 58 carries for 447 yards for Springdale's ground game. They did attempt 2 passes, completed them both for 95 yards. So, again, man, the flex bone, they have found something that obviously works, that they like, but 447 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns, and I think it's kind of gawky.
Yeah.
2 of those rushing touchdowns. And you're right, Farmington was up 21-14 at the half, But for the second year in a row, it looks like they're going to lose their starting quarterback, maybe for the season, which is a tremendous blow for a Farmington team that I thought would be, if not at the top of the 5A West, very close to the top of the conference.
Well, and we've still got, a little ways to go. They got good athletes over in Farmington, and we'll just see what Coach J.R. Eldridge puts together over there. He's a good coach, and they'll figure something out over there. I can promise you that.
Last year, didn't they take a senior defensive back and put him at quarterback, and they did pretty well? I can't remember the kid's name.
Yeah, they made the playoffs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, Van Zant did come back at the end of the season, which helped too, but they did make the playoffs.
All right. Well, let's go down to the River Valley, Leland. We'll start at the game you were at. I know that Fort Smith Northside looked like they were missing a team load of players against Greenwood, but Greenwood's defense really just ate Northside alive.
Yeah, I was looking down at the sideline before the game, and I was looking at, the players that were down there that were not dressed out, and I kept looking over at the roster going, well, there's a starter. Well, there's a starter. Well, there's a starter. So I think I counted 5 starters that they were without, including 2 offensive linemen, which, it never helps to miss 2 of those guys the second game of the year.
Of injuries?
And then McLean Moody wasn't even there because he was sick with an illness. So the starting quarterback wasn't there. And, Greenwood just took full advantage of, of a short man Northside team. For 7 turnovers, Cash Archer had 3 sacks, and Northside held Northside to 72 yards of offense. Greenwood was up 28-0 after a quarter and 42-0 at halftime.
Man, just a total domination. And, I know those guys, if Northside had been at full strength, would have made a big difference for sure. But
what, the injuries? Why some of those guys were out?
Yeah, injuries.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. You got to think that Coach Curry's playing the long game here. You want to beat Greenwood, and but you want to be able to compete in your conference, and so probably sitting those guys out was probably the right move on his part.
Absolutely, and I've never seen this before. Greenwood's average drive start in the first half was Northside's 39.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's short fields for sure. Let's move down to Ozark, where Boonville wins a shootout affair against Ozark, and kind of enjoyed reading about the game that Dax Goff had. Had a big night all around, and even had a receiving touchdown. He caught both of the passes actually for the Bearcats. So, what did you hear about that one, Leland?
Well, it was great. In Sunday's River Valley Democrat-Gazette, we get to do a follow-up of the games we did from Friday night, and Harold McIlvain had just a fantastic follow-up, talked to Dax Goff about, we all know what a great running back he is. He rushed for, a school record 2,200 yards last year plus. He's a great linebacker. And it's hard to say he's a better linebacker than he is a running back because he's so good at both. But then the fact that he now also has a receiving touchdown, and the story was just great. Talked to Dax Goff about, his I don't know about a new role, but a new role that he certainly played on Friday night as a receiver. Plus, he got to return a kickoff for a touchdown. So it was, I think he had 303 all-purpose yards on Friday night, and oddly enough, not all of them were rushing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool, like I was thinking to myself, like if Bo Williams had not gone for what he did, that would have been a good Player of the Week candidate too, but Bo got the honor this week.
Seems like that's the philosophy I've heard a lot of coaches: put the ball in the hands of your best player, and it seemed like they do that a lot down there.
And speaking of best players, man, Southside's got a bunch of good players that they can give the ball to. That Southside running game is really piling up the yards early, Leland.
Man, Cooper Anderson, Kobe Branham, Jace Jackson, 3 senior offensive linemen just clearing the way. And, of course, we love to, in the Northwest Arkansas and River Valley Democrat-Gazette and this show, we love to bring you nuggets that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Oh man, I
Well,
can't wait for this.
Southside rushed 27 times for 437 yards on Friday night. That is the first time in Southside history that they have rushed for over 400 yards in 2 consecutive games. So that shows you, even early in the year,
Yes.
how that ground game is really going.
Well, we're talking about the Southside 55-28 win over Van Buren on Friday, and it got out of hand a little bit early. I know Van Buren scored some points late. We were kind of hoping the game would be a little bit closer than it was. Southside has overwhelmed Van Buren. So, so let's go over the scores briefly from last week. We mentioned Conway 42, Bentonville 39, Rogers High 35, Bishop Kelly 7. Springdale beat Farmington 42-38. How about this one? Fayetteville 58, North Little Rock 20. We know that I thought that Fayetteville would go over there and win. I didn't expect them to go win by 38. Cabot and Bentonville West had a good one. Cabot wins 21-18. Bixby, Oklahoma, all over Springdale Harbor 75-18. Lewisburg, Kansas 38-14 over Rogers Heritage. We mentioned Greenwood 49-0 over Northside, and Southside 55-28 over Van Buren. Alma gets its first win of the year, 38-14 over Siloam Springs. How about this one, guys? Mountain Home with its first win in the rivalry with Harrison in about 10 or 11 years, 44-31 over the Goblins. Shiloh Christian, we talked about that one over Little Rock Christian, 43-22. Gravett with a big win over Inola, Oklahoma, 37-0. Prairie Grove stops Huntsville, 49-14. Pea Ridge gets a win over Gentry, 48-13 in a rematch of last year's game, which the score was about the opposite last year. Morrilton, 35-7 over Clarksville. Lamar with another big win over Waldron, 40-6. Boonville and Ozark, we mentioned that one. Boonville won at 48-35. Lincoln beats Westville, Oklahoma, 48-24. Berryville with a 16-13 close one over West Fork. Elkins goes down to Charleston and gets a big win, 49-13. How about this one, guys? Green Forest, 56. Greenland, 52. We'll talk about that one in just a little bit. And then Mansfield over Paris, 47-9. Lavaca, 47-6 over Magazine. Picola, Oklahoma, 42-26 over Hackett. Mountainburg, 26. Danville, 20. And Yellville Summit with a 36-0 win over Johnsonville Westside. Just a lot of scores to throw at you there, but that's what we like to hear. We like to see these scores, and we've got a lot of good feedback on Saturday, a lot of good local roundups in our newspapers. Let's take a look at this week's games. So we've got Rogers at Farmington, Victory Christian at Shiloh Christian in Springdale. Little Rock Central visits Bentonville West. Greenbrier visits Siloam Springs. That's a conference game. They get to open because they've got so many teams in their conference. They're opening 1 week early in conference. Charleston at Ozark. Fort Smith Northside is at Fayetteville. Camden Fairview is at Boonville. Springdale at Conway. Little Rock Southwest at Rogers Heritage. Fort Smith Southside at Wynn. Greenwood at that Mountain Home. The 2-0 Mountain Home, 2-0 Greenwood.
Wow.
Man, they're excited over in Bomber Nation. Gravett at Prairie Grove. Huntsville at Pea Ridge. Clarksville at Elkins. Batesville at Harrison. Waldron at Folk. Mena at Lincoln. Quitman at Gentry. Dover at Lamar. Berryville at Greenland. West Fork at Paris. Horatio at Lavaca. Danville at Magazine. And Mountainburg at Cedarville. Guys, I mean, there's a lot of games there for us. The slate this week is just not there's just not the real marquee game we're looking for. But I know there's some exciting games to be played, regardless. Leland, was there anyone on that list? I know you're going to be at Charleston at Ozark, if I'm not mistaken. And that one, we'll see if Ozark bounces back from a tough loss to Boonville and see what happens with Charleston.
Well, that's the Franklin County feud, but it's I think for both of those teams right now, it's probably the bounce back bowl. Ozark dropped a tough one to Boonville. Charleston, of course, lost to a very good. I think we're going to know at the end of the year. We're going to look back and say, hey, maybe that one wasn't that bad after all, because Elkins is very good. So both of those teams, the Bounce Back Bowl, they want to, win a game, before conference starts. But I tell you, the game that really stands out to me, Greenwood at Mountain Home, which normally, I'd look at that game and go, it's Greenwood at Mountain Home. Greenwood's 5-0 against Mountain Home. And in those 5 meetings, which 2 of those have been in the playoffs the last 3 years, but Mountain Home has scored a grand total of 4 touchdowns in those 5 games. Mountain Home may score 4 touchdowns Friday night. Cade Yates set a Mountain Home single game school record on Friday night, throwing for 422 yards. They had 3 receivers over 100 yards in that big win over Harrison that snapped a 10-year losing streak to the Goblins. So they are going to be fired up at Bomber Stadium on Friday night.
It'll be a nice atmosphere. They do a good job over at Mountain Home at promoting that team, and now they're having a little bit of success. Steve Airey's done a good job over there. I tell you what, too, Greenwood going to Mountain Home, they better leave like in just a few minutes, because it takes a while to get there. That's not an easy trip.
No, it's not. It's I think everybody, dreads that trip. Mountain Home for a long time, they were locked into a classification because of the, what did they call it? The isolation clause, or the isolation rule. So it's, it's probably, it may be the hardest road trip on a, normal average for any team in the state.
Yeah.
That's one reason I've always kind of cheered for Mountain Home, because they're kind of isolated up there, and they really have to go a long way. Anytime they come down that hill, especially in October, November, you get a little snow, maybe a little sleet, and man, it's great to see them put together a fine. They've already been pretty good in basketball, but man, this is exciting for them. Great game coming up with Greenwood.
Let me tell you about the game. I'm just really curious to see how it turns out. It's not on anybody's radar probably, but Little Rock Southwest at Rogers Heritage. So Southwest wins this game last year by 1 point in Little Rock. They're making the return trip up for Friday night. We just don't know a whole lot about Rogers Heritage or Southwest. Southwest only played one time. We know they've got some talent. Didn't play real well at Rogers High in week 0. We know Rogers Heritage has a good running back and a Mary Dingle. We'll just anxious to see how Daryl Patton has his group ready to come up here next week, or this week rather, and play the War Eagles. All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will give you our top 5. Welcome back to the Prep Rally Podcast, sponsored by West Termite Pest and Lawn. Graham Thomas with you with Rick Fires and Leland Barclay. And guys, let's jump right into our top 5. We always start off with Rick, but let's start off with Leland this time. The top 5 from the River Valley, and what you got, Leland?
Well, I got to go with Greenwood's defense. Cash Archer, a junior defensive end, 3 sacks, forced 2 fumbles, plus he had another tackle for loss. And those 3 sacks were all in the first quarter. And then Brady Mackey picked up a fumble and ran it back 38 yards for a touchdown, 7 turnovers in all, 72 yards and 7 first downs given up. Just a tremendous performance, again, by Greenwood's defense. Southside's offense, again, we talked about 437 yards rushing. Amari Tucker, 11 carries, 258 and 2 touchdowns. And then the other guy, Isaac Gregory, 7 carries for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns. Plus, he caught a 67-yard touchdown pass. So 4 touchdowns for Isaac Gregory. Then Subiaco Academy beat, I have to think of the name, Arkansas Christian Academy out of Bryant, 82-0 on Friday night in an 8-man football game. Subiaco scored 10 offensive touchdowns and also forced 6 turnovers on defense. And then Lavaca, with a very good defensive effort in a 47-6 win over Magazine, gave up 54 total yards. So Lavaca off to a good start as well. And then number 5, I'm going to have to step off the gridiron a little bit. go with Southside, and it's kind of a Southside, twin bill. The volleyball team went up to Shiloh Christian and played in a three-way match and defeated Benton, which I think won the 5A state championship last year, and defeated Shiloh Christian, which was 4A runner-up last year, both 3-0 behind Lydia Pitts, who had a great, I guess you'd say, doubleheader. And then also, Cadence Hodge won the cross-country meet in her division at the Shiloh Christian cross-country meet on Saturday. So two great performances by Southside there in two different sports.
All right, Rick, top 5. Go for it, man.
All right, I know we're mostly Northwest, but, man, I love when Arkansas teams do really well, make Arkansas look good. And I got to go with Bryant. Bryant, 45, Christian Brothers of St. Louis, defending state champions. Both these teams, state champions. And, losing Buck James apparently hadn't affected Bryant at all. They had 584 yards, total yards. They ran their win streak to 24 consecutive. Still the team to beat in Arkansas. So congratulations there. Then I'm going to, we talked earlier about excellent, not only top 5, that may be one of the top 5 games I've ever seen, Conway and Bentonville. But my props is to C.J. Brown, returning that second half kickoff 99 yards, and then on the next series, 81-yard touchdown pass. And I want to talk to the people out there on Friday night. This is what we love about high school football. You don't have to sit home on Friday night and then wait for the college games. Go out and see some of these kids before they become stars on the college level, maybe in the pro level. I know you sit home, you watch Netflix, you go out and eat your catfish or whatever. Kind of put that in with the Friday night. Just pick out a game. Pick out a game to go to. There's some great athletes out there. A couple weeks ago, I talked about Springdale High. And I said, man, they look pretty good against Harrison. And then they got the win. They got the win over Farmington. And the word that stood out to me is they comeback win. When you lose, oh my goodness, what's going to happen now? How are we going to lose this one? But they didn't lose. They got the defensive stop, and then they scored with, seconds ago. So great job for Springdale High. The only thing is their reward, they got to go to Conway.
Hey, maybe Conway will be, still riding that high from that Bentonville win.
Well, not with Buck
Probably
James.
not.
I doubt. Probably not. But Brett Hobbs, man, I watched him in high school. He's the ultimate Springdale Bulldog, tough linebacker. And then he goes down to Alma, makes all league down there at Arkansas Tech. And they're going back to physicality. They got some great guys up front. And the guy, by the end of the year, we're going to have to figure out how to say his name. But major props to Brett Hobbs and Springdale, what they're doing. I wrote down Rogers beating Bishop Kelly, Jacob Jenkins, Isaac Chapman, 2 touchdowns apiece. They also play on defense. They got Farmington would be, but if they're starting quarterback, it may not be as good a game as maybe it would have been had Cameron been there. And then I don't want to jump too far ahead, but man, then that 7A West opener when Rogers plays Fort Smith Southside. Woo, man, what a game that's going to be. So that's what I got for this week.
All right. I'm going to go, we talked about him at the beginning of the show, but Bo Williams, I mean, what a job. He was the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette's Player of the Week this week. I'm just going to say 400 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, and that's number 1. And but he also plays a part in number 2. Number 2 is that Shiloh Christian defense. They were – I just got to have more information about the job they did about stopping Walker White. Leland, you said they were non-factor. I mean, that's just what a great job.
Stunning to me, yes.
Tucker Bernard and the Saints. I mean, just a great job. Number 3, I'm going to go with Ridge Gordon Swafford of Green Forest.
What?
Listen to all this here in a 56-52 win against Greenland. And we saw Ridge Gordon Swafford at Media Day up here. 36 carries. 171 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Wow. He also caught 3 passes for 23 yards and a receiving touchdown. And his teammate, Mason Metter, the quarterback, was 11 of 15 passing for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. also rushed for 29 yards and 1 touchdown. What a win for the Red Tigers. Really happy to see that.
So what you're telling, we could have had like 7 co-players a week. So many great individual efforts.
We just had, and here comes another one. Elkins, our boy Dizzy Dean.
Yep.
20 out of 27 for 235-yard passing and 5 touchdowns, and even his brother Stone got in the act. 6 receptions, 90 receiving yards and 1 touchdown.
Good players.
Man, just as you said, Rick, a lot of good performances. But here's another one I'm going to throw at you guys. Last week, golfer from Fayetteville, Elizabeth Lim, shot a 64 in a match against Rogers. I mean, I can't even, I couldn't even shoot that if they had the bumpers up and let it straight to the hole. I mean, what an amazing job. And,
and Fayetteville's had some good golfers.
Oh,
too.
yeah. And I remember texting with Coach Scott Williams last week and said it was a really fun round to watch, too. So, the girls golf state tournament is going to be at Springdale Country Club later this month, and Elizabeth will be one of those that we're really happy to follow along, and there's a lot of good female golfers out there. So, but that concludes our top 5, and that will be the conclusion of this podcast, folks. You can listen to Prep Rally at nwaonline.com or wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Be sure and look for Prep Rally Live later this week with Rick Fires and I as we break down some of the good matchups up in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley this week. And, it's kind of, we're already on week 3. It goes by in the blink of an eye, fellas. A couple more weeks we'll be starting conference play. And then you start adding in all the different tournaments with golf and tennis and cross country and volleyball. And, it just gets to be a very busy time, and it goes by quick.
Busy but fun, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it does.
That's why we're in this business.
Yep. So for Leland Barclay in the River Valley and for Rick Fires, this is Graham Thomas signing off. I'm sorry, I'm not signing up for anything. We're signing off. And thank you for watching Prep Rally.